from the delegation. We had a couple of meetings ago from the property manager. Staff asked for a bit of time to go back and take a bit of a deeper dive into this. So Carrie, do you want to let us know what you found?
Thank you. And through the mayor, this was a learning experience for everybody. Partly because the staff that looked after the water meter installation, both on the ground and in the office, have since retired. So we had to rely on some old notes and meeting minutes and picking the brains of a few people. So this was a report that took quite a few of us to gather all the information. Do you want me to go through it in detail?
I think just a high level summary is sufficient.
Okay.
Everybody's had a chance to take a look at it.
So as you know, in 2011 and 2012, we did install water meters in every home and dwelling and business in town. At the time, we ended up taking out a debenture in the amount of just over 1 million for 20 years, and that loan will expire in 2033. In the meantime, we've already started replacing some of those meters because the technology has become outdated and some of the meters were starting to fail. So we have budgeted starting in 2020 to replace an estimated 90 units per year. And of course, any new build within town is installing the newly updated meters. So the building at 250 Robert, in addition to quite a few other buildings in town, already had, at the time of construction, their water infrastructure was already in place. So we take it from that there must have been some type of arrangement made to allow them to not have to upgrade and put in a meter for each unit, but instead a bulk meter. And that was common at the time, as well. It was common in the rest of the province until metering became a concern for conservation and consumption and billing purposes. Now all new builds require that individual plumbing with a single service to each unit is installed at the time of construction. So we also pointed out that the universal meter system is transmitted through radio transmitters to the town hall, to pings off the towers. So we don't physically have a body that goes out and reads meters at people's homes. Had individual meters been installed in this condominium building, that would have been the same case. At the time of the installation, there were some property owners who did not want the town to enter into their property for whatever reason and refused to have a meter installed. So part of our water and sewer bylaw dictates that in those instances, the people that do not have a water meter will pay a triple billing fee, which is triple times the base rate. And currently we still do have 3 properties in town that pay this. Little hands wrapped around my finger and it's so quiet in the night.
Little musical interlude there.
So council is also aware that we just recently updated our water and sewer bylaw, as well as implemented a backflow prevention and cross-connection control bylaw and a water meter policy, all of which are attached. Sorry, they're not all attached. The water meter policy is attached as Appendix 4. During staff's review of this process, we did identify a wording discrepancy that is located on page 4, section 4 of the water meter policy, and we have incorporated that into part of the motion just to correct that wording. In conjunction with our municipal bylaws, the town must also adhere to provincial water regulations, and we have adopted our water financial plan and rate studies, both of which were completed by professional firms. And in 2020, the town adopted the 10-year water financial plan and amended the water and sewer rates. It should be noted too that when we did pass the bylaw for the rates, there were incremental increases annually that deal specifically with the challenges that we're facing with respect to water and wastewater upgrades to the plant and new water tower and all those things. Development charges can't cover all of it. So the consultants that did the DC study work with the consultants that did the water master plan, financial plan, so that we're not double accounting for these costs, because you can't collect from both. So we're collecting the right contribution from each, the DC study and the water study. And council heard the property management delegation on March 8th, and asked staff to report back with in reference to the concerns that were raised. So I have attached the copy of the letter initially received from the maintenance company, as well as the town's response, and then subsequently the delegation request. So just to further provide more analysis to the 3 items that the town had broken down as what the main concerns were: the significant rise in monthly billing. Over a 3-year period, there has been a 55% increase in the usage at that building. We're attributing most of that to COVID-19 and most people spending time at home during the stay-at-home order or working from home permanently now. That is something that is being experienced townwide with everybody's water bill. I'm sure you've all noticed your own have gone up just because you're at home more. And so these rates are townwide, and they are equitable to all users of both the water and the wastewater system. And as previously mentioned, they reflect the billing model that was in place at the time that the water financial study was conducted. So staff are recommending, with respect to this, that we provide more social media information and pamphlets to share with the public our concerns for water conservation. And those can be specifically mailed to these property owners with their tax bill, because there is only one water bill and it goes to the condominium owner. So the tax bills could include an information pamphlet on water conservation for these residents specifically. The number of units used to calculate the base rate charges, we did identify that there is not a washroom included in that common room, and further review of other common rooms in town also do not have a washroom facility. They do have a sink and a tap, but no washrooms. So in order to keep that consistent and fair across the board, staff are recommending that we do remove the extra common room unit. It is unfortunate that that was not something that was caught sooner, but we do recommend that the number of units be reduced from 40 to 39. And the impact of the tiered consumption charges, we did some research and we did look into what some of the neighboring municipalities do with respect to their water billing and their water system in general. And we found that it's next to impossible to compare apples to apples. There's no two systems that do things completely alike. So we did a breakdown here, and I've attached it as Appendix 5. If you were to take this building with 39 units and allow for 220 cubic meters to be used per unit, it would accumulate to 8,580 cubic meters before it would jump to the next block rate. However, the provincial average per person is set at only 7 cubic meters per person. So if you assume that there's 14 people, or 2 people living in each of those units, that would be 14 cubic meters, which would never, unless there was a leak or something, would never reach the 8,580 cubic meters. According to the property manager, this building is mostly owned by exclusively seniors. However, there is no guarantee that this demographic will not change over time. So Appendix 5 details the difference if you were to allow for the tiered billing. It would be approximately, and this is based only on the January and February consumption, because every billing changes depending on the consumption, of course. So by estimating $478.62 annually, that is subject to fluctuations, but that is the example provided just for these purposes. However, if council was to choose that option, the only problem with that is there are about 46 properties in town that have bulk meters and feed other units with those meters, and the number of units changes depending on the building. Some have 9 units, some have 20, some have 24, some have one has 60. So if you were to make this change which would require a bylaw amendment, it would also affect the billing for several other properties. And based on the number of units, you'd be looking at approximately $87,000 a year in reduced water and sewer revenue based on 2021 rates. So staff have, we've tested and verified that our existing software can accommodate the change if council wishes to initiate that. There are, it would be recommended that if you do, that a maximum usage still be identified so that at some point there would be an increase to the tiered rate, using the provincial average perhaps as oh, I'm sorry, my mind, as a base, a starting point. Sorry. So staff have presented 4 alternatives with respect to the tiered consumption, and they're outlined on page 6. You could continue with the 2 bulk meter with the rates set at 5/8, which is what we're currently billing now, and reduce the number of units from 40 to 39. You could amend the bylaw, which would affect the other properties that fall into the same situation. You could offer a special exemption to this bylaw for this property alone. Or you could request that the condominium corporation have the owners retrofit for a meter for each of their units. So staff are recommending option 1, and the reasons for our recommendation is that the implementing of the metered water for this property was not required to be an upfront expense for retrofitting plumbing at the time of installation. There are no incentives for water conservation with a single bulk meter, and there is no monitoring of isolating leaks with a bulk meter. There is also no guarantee that the demographics of this building unit's owners will remain predominantly fixed income seniors. And finally, it is consistent with the town's bylaw and is equitable when compared to how other circumstances are treated within town. For example, the people who refuse to have a meter installed are paying triple billing rates. And then the financial impacts, I've just outlined as part of the motion, the reduction from 49 to 30, or sorry, from 40 units to 39 would amount to approximately $686.16 annually, and that's based on 2021 rates. If you were to choose option 2 or 3, that would add an additional $478.62 to that savings, making the estimated annual savings $1,164.78, which is very close to one of the numbers that the property manager noted in one of his letters. And then the final recommendation is just to amend the policy wording on the water meter policy.
Okay. Questions or comments for Carrie? Councillor Bernardo?
I like the option of just reducing the unit down and to 39. If there is no washroom facilities in there, that's fair. As far as doing anything else, I don't like the idea of changing it. I don't like changing the policy so that other people are affected by it. It should remain consistent across the board. As far as leaks, if they have leaks, that's the property manager's problem, not ours. If there's leaks in the building, it's nice for us to know it. I like it in my house. I'd like to know if there was a leak in my house and the town would inform me, but in all honesty, that's not really our concern at this point, unless at some point they do decide to put in individual water meters, then that's great. But at this point, you know, we can't force them to do it. So I like your recommendation of just reducing it. I know we're going to lose a little bit of money, but that's all in fairness to the fact we don't actually have a washroom in there.
So to that point, Carrie, I know option 4 is to request the condo corporation actually have meters installed for each unit. Short of us requesting that, is that something that they could initiate on their own? I mean, if they chose to do so?
I would think so, yes, if they chose to do that.
Okay.
A lot of the buildings that are being renovated downtown require that the new meters are put in during the renovations. And so we are seeing less and less of the larger buildings with the bulk meter.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on that? Councillor Hall?
Similar to Councillor Bernardo, again, I support the going with option 1, obviously requesting the condominium corporation to review their opportunity to put in the single meters if they're looking at a little bit different. I think, again, with those condominium corporations, they also can monitor that single volume through that 2-inch bulk to see where they've got some issues within themselves that maybe need to drive some of their own internal when you're talking about water consumption. But I think option 1 is the ideal option.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Councillor Buffett? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, just to go back to our first meeting, when we were discussing it with Carrie, with regards to that building and the increased usage, that was just like a big change that took place just since COVID started. So it may just be a big one-off that's taken place. And so given that that's the situation, I would prefer to go with option one as well.
Okay. Well, it kind of sounds like we have some consensus around staff's recommendation. So the recommended motion reads as follows. Be it resolved, the council receives staff report FS 2021-07 with respect to the water and sewer billing for 250 Robert Street. And the council directs staff to remove the additional unit of a common room from the base rate billing for 250 Robert Street effective January 1st, 2021 for a savings of $686.16 annually. And that's as per the 2021 base rate. And further, the council approves option one with respect to tiered consumption charges for this property. And further, that council authorizes an amendment to wording within the water meter policy, section 4, backflow preventers from multi-residential properties with 4 or more stories to multi-residential properties with 4 or more units. And that was just a typo that was caught as part of this review. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Hall, second by Councillor Bernardo. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, so on to the Arts and Culture Committee. You'll probably recall a few meetings ago, the clerk, the deputy mayor, Councillor Buffett and myself were sent away to go and see if we could drum up some interest in committee members. So we've done that. We've identified 7 members of the community who are willing to fill the public appointments. And Jennifer, are there 2 council appointments to go with this?
The terms of reference don't indicate the number of councillors to be appointed to the committee.
Okay.
1, 2, 3 is what I would recommend.
Okay. So are there volunteers for this? Councillor Egan? Okay.
And of course, I'll be on it.
Okay. Okay, so Fegan, Buffett, Bernardo, and Anderson.
So
It's 1 to 3, and so you already have 3 already, so I'm fine.
yeah, sorry, I was going to say 4 members constitute a quorum of council, and thus a council meeting.
Right. Okay. Are you okay then? Okay. Alrighty. Just going to say we could do a runoff, but that's fine. Okay. All right. So the motion will read then, be it resolved, the council receives report LS 2021-06 from the clerk for information, and that the following members be appointed to the Arts and Culture Committee for the remaining term of council. Angela Tricona, Tracy Smith, Wendy Reed, Andrew James, Althea Ali, Tristan Barracks, Tricia Linton, and that the following council members be appointed to the Arts and Culture Committee for the remaining term of council. Councillors Fegan, Buffett, and Bernardo. Get a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Fegan, second by Councillor Wagner. All in favor? Carried. All right, next is a report from the clerk regarding alternative voting methods for the next municipal election for next fall.
Just through your worship, I'll just give a quick high-level overview of the report. That the Municipal Elections Act specifies that a municipal council may authorize alternative voting methods that do not require electors to attend a voting place in order to vote. The town of Shelburne used internet and telephone voting for the 2018 municipal and school board elections. COVID-19 remains an ongoing concern, and health experts believe there may be additional waves of the virus for months or perhaps years to come. All aspects of the 2022 election planning must shift to accommodate the reality of the global pandemic. Staff would like to be able to provide safe voting procedures during the pandemic. This includes rethinking the function and operation of voting places during an election and exploring alternative methods of voting that allow electors to cast ballots without having to attend the voting place. Preparation is well underway for the next municipal election in October 2022. And planning must now shift to acknowledge and accommodate the reality of COVID-19. Just a quick overview, the percentage of voter turnout for the 2018 election was 38.89%, almost 39%. Internet voting would involve providing each elector with unique credentials to access the secure voting website from a personal computer, tablet, or smartphone, wherever there is an internet connection during the voting period. Voting credentials would be mailed to non-residents who have the capability to cast their ballot from anywhere, provided there is an internet connection available. Electors that require assistance will be aided during the voting period. We'll be establishing voting centers. Other municipal facilities will be providing internet access, such as the library. By adding telephone voting in conjunction with internet voting, there's an enhanced level of convenience and access, allowing voters to cast a ballot remotely from anywhere they have access to a phone line within the voting period. As with the 2018 municipal election, lower tiers within the county of Dufferin, save and except the town of Orangeville, have partnered together with IntelliVote Systems to offer an alternative voting method for the 2022 municipal election. Attached as Appendix 1 is a copy of their electronic voting solution overview. They have also provided a quoted cost, $13,165. So the note in there is that the quoted cost is based on the number of eligible electors from the 2018 election, 4,876. Pricing will be adjusted based on the number of eligible electors once the final list of electors is produced, and this list will not be available until after the election has closed. It is anticipated that the quoted price could increase based on occupancy of the new subdivisions. An elections reserve has been established. Each budget from 2017 to 2022 contributes $5,000 each year to the election reserve. The 2021 budget noted the election reserve containing $25,000 by 2022. And the 2018 municipal election cost totaled $16,284. So that's a quick high-level overview. The recommendation noted is that council authorizes the use of an alternative voting method for the 2022 municipal election. Staff be directed to bring forward a bylaw to authorize the use of an alternative voting method, and that the clerk be authorized to enter into an agreement with IntelliVote Systems for provision of alternative voting methods for the 2022 municipal election. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the clerk? Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Thanks, Jennifer. I know I'm going to say this is going to bring a smile to Walter's face because I have fond memories of the election. But Jennifer, as you know, even when we introduced this electronic format last year, there were a number of residents that had difficulty. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there may have been, whether it's yourself or other staff members, who had to go to people's home to assist them to get the vote. And Walter, you know this because we saw that firsthand. Because we're in this pandemic situation, I know you talked about maybe centers where people could go to where there's Wi-Fi, etc. But in the instances where they require that similar help that they did in the previous election, what is the policy respecting that now?
So an election policy will be brought forward for council's review as well. That relates to the internet voting and telephone voting methods. And we'll have to, of course, keep our 6 feet social distancing. If that cannot happen, masks and protective eyewear are required to be worn. We are willing to go out and help each elector that is having issues, but I would like to establish alternative voting locations so that there are several locations, not just one location as town hall, to assist those that are having issues.
I see, Councilor, but I just want to follow up with this question, Councilor Banana, just before you go. I went to schedule an appointment with Scotiabank, and before they booked the appointment, and I'm going somewhere with this, they asked me a number of screening questions. Hey, have you traveled out of the country? Do you have any symptoms? And after going through that screening, they said, okay, we're going to book your appointment for you to come in and then presumably wear your PPE, et cetera. As a part of the policy, is there going to be that? I mean, I appreciate the willingness to go in, but are there going to be those sort of screening questions where you'd be asking those sort of questions before you even go into the person's residence?
Yes, those pre-screening questions are mandated by public health, and they will be a requirement.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Bernardo, did you have a question?
And hiding on mute myself. It's great, Jennifer, that all these are out there for the public to be able to vote. But there are public that, one, cannot vote because they don't understand the language. They have no ability with the language. Two, they don't have internet. Three, they would know how to use a phone to do it. And they're not the type of people that will call in, so that kind of forces other people to go out and assist them. And I'm thinking especially of my mother-in-law. She doesn't speak English. She doesn't understand the language well, but she is a citizen and a voter in this town. And my wife or somebody else is going to have to go out and assist her with the voting because she's not going to call town hall for it. Are there still the ability, if they want to come in person to vote and centers to vote, or are we just going strictly with alternate methods?
So similar to the 2018 municipal election, there will be established locations for those that require help. Those locations will be open after hours and on Saturdays as well.
Yeah, I know we went to senior residents and we assisted the seniors at the different old age homes. And again, I know the issues there, but there is no actual in-person voting anymore. I can't go to vote in person like we used to.
No, that's not correct. There will be an established voting center, which is the town hall, and most likely the library. So,
okay, so
in person, we'll have a tablet available for them to be able to assist them.
Okay, so on computer. And I guess going back to Steve's questions, on PPEs and whatnot. If I go to the fire hall, they've got a thermometer there and they take my temperature before I even get in the fire hall to make sure that I'm not, I can tell you I'm not feeling sick and I can answer all the questions, but that doesn't mean I don't have a temperature and I'm not actually feeling well. They just want to make double sure. Are we doing the same thing?
I'm not sure if I'll be taking everyone's temperature, but I'll be going through the mandated public health requirements of pre-screening questions and the required PPE to be worn.
Okay. I guess it's just a quick one of those electronic thermometers you just point at the forehead the way they do at the other health centers, and a quick check of temperature is what I was thinking along that line there. Okay, that's all my questions.
But Councilor Bernardo, I mean, I think, I don't know whether that's something, I think it's a great idea. I think even now, even having people come to your home to do construction or whatever the case may be, I see a lot of people now purchasing those temperature guns and using them. Mm-hmm. And I actually have one myself. I got it at the IGA. Is that something that maybe you're considering that we should be obtaining for our staff, especially, or for those who will be going to these homes, that they have that as additional protection?
That's what my thought was, because like I said, I can tell you all kinds of, I'm feeling well. I haven't been, like the standard questions are, have you been out of the country? Have you not been well or whatever? I can say yes, no to all of those questions, but at the same time, I could be running still a slight temperature when you walk in the house. It's just extra protection for our own staff.
Let's keep in mind too that the election's a year from this fall, right? So, protocols may have changed dramatically, by that time. So, I certainly appreciate all the, comments and suggestions, but I think, staff is on top of the protocols that are in place at any given time. And I think as we march a little closer to, fall of 2022, we can probably, start to develop policies that's more reflective of the realities at that point. And hopefully we're well beyond the current circumstances that we're embroiled in right now. But yeah, I think the message is loud and clear. We'll certainly do everything that's necessary to make sure that both voters and staff are kept safe through this process, and that everybody has, equal and ample access to exercise their franchise. So, okay.
I think it's a great point you make, Mayor Mills. I only say this, and I'll close with my comments is, I agree with you. Hopefully with the vaccine rollout, this becomes a moot point. But what I don't want is for us to be caught with, anyways, you know what I mean, what I'm going to say. But because you recall, there was a great scramble for PPEs because everybody sort of waited to the last minute. And so when you wanted to get a mask, you wanted to get a visor, it was very difficult to get. And so you were left, in a precarious position. And so I agree, we still have some time, but I don't want to wait too far down the road to make sure that we're adequately prepared and we're not scrambling at the last moment. So, but your point is well taken.
Okay. Any additional questions for the clerk? No. Okay. Can I get a motion then to receive the report, authorize the use of alternative voting methods, specifically telephone and internet, direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to authorize the use of those alternative methods, and authorize the clerk to enter into an agreement with IntelliVote Systems, Inc. for the provision of internet and telephone voting methods for the 2022 municipal election. Councillor Wagner, seconded by Councillor Hall. All in favor? That's carried. Okay. All right, next is a bylaw authorizing the town to enter into an agreement regarding court security prisoner transportation. This is a standard thing we do every year, right, Jennifer? Okay. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Hall. All in favor? Carried. And lastly is consideration of a short-term business license application for Dan the Man driveway sealing. Moved by Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Wagner. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Notices of motion. Deputy Mayor, I think you were working on one regarding the Shelburne Police Service.
Yeah, thank you. I did submit it to Jennifer, but I could read it out.
Sure.
It reads, be it resolved that council directs staff to proceed with sourcing a custom display case to have items from SPS inclusive of uniforms, pictures, and written history to be affixed at Shelburne Town Hall. Also that staff provide to council the custom display options for final approval.
Okay, excellent. All right, any other notices of motion this evening?
Can I second that notice of motion?
Yep. Jennifer, you got that? Okay. Okay, so I have one. I did give council a heads up that I would be bringing this. From the time I gave that heads up, there have been a couple of provincial announcements, although I still haven't seen anything official, unless something has been announced during the course of this meeting, but I doubt it. So the motion that I'm presenting reads as follows. Whereas the province of Ontario declared a third provincial emergency on April 7th, 2021 in response to the third wave of COVID-19, and whereas public health officials recognize that workplaces are a significant source of COVID-19 transmission throughout the province, and whereas access to paid sick days is not available to a number of workers throughout the province, including essential workers, those who cannot work remotely, and surprisingly, many healthcare workers. And whereas too many of these workers simply cannot afford to take time off, even when they are sick and may be exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19, and whereas this fear of income loss and financial hardship are known barriers to compliance with COVID-19 control measures, including testing and self-isolation. And whereas the current federal programs are inadequate and too time-consuming to meet the full needs of workers who require sick leave, and whereas, although in recent days, the province has suggested that a paid sick day policy announcement was imminent, to date, no such announcement has been made. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor, on behalf of Council, write to the Premier of Ontario to request that the provincial government immediately implement and fund the necessary policies to provide adequate paid sick day benefits to ensure accessible and timely supports to allow workers to get tested, self-isolate, and follow all necessary COVID-19 control measures without fear of income loss and financial hardship. And further, that a copy of this resolution be sent to MPP Sylvia Jones, MP Kyle Seaback, and all other Ontario municipalities for their awareness and support. I get a seconder for that, Councillor Bernardo. As mentioned earlier, given the time sensitivity of this, I would ask for council's indulgence and consent to consider this matter tonight. Is there anybody who objects to that? No? Okay. I think the motion is fairly self-explanatory, so I don't have any additional comments. Councillor Bernardo is seconder. Do you want to make any comments?
Yeah, I would. Just tonight, it was announced on the news that a 13-year-old girl in Peel died, and it was due to the fact that COVID was brought home from her mother, who was an essential worker, and it spread to the family. And it's unfortunate that these people that are essential workers have to go to work, end up getting sick, and end up bringing it home to their family, and end up with a 13-year-old being the first in the province of that age to die. It's sad, and it's sad news. And I think the province has failed to step up and protect the essential workers that have to go out there with sick days. It's the worst thing in life that you have no choice because you're living, basically from day to day, that you have to go to work to pay your mortgage, to pay your bills, and you have no choice because you can't afford to stay home, sick or not. So I fully support this motion, and I think it should go to the province and hopefully force the province's hand.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, call the question then. All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Okay, communications. Are there any items that anybody would like to pull out? Councillor Bernardo?
I'd like to pull out number 6, the letter from the Township of Melanchthon regarding the county rescue call policy. I know they're asking for further clarification. I'm not really sure what they're asking for. The county is basically saying that they will pay, but first they would like the fire board to try to collect the money from the insurance companies. It's not saying that we won't collect the money from them. In some cases, insurance companies pay, some cases they don't, but the county will pay at the end of the day. So we're still going to get our money. It's just, we have to do a little bit more work ahead of time. And the other one I'd like to pull out is number 5 from the.
Sorry, just 1 second, Councillor Bernardo, before you move on to that one. In terms of the item listed as number 6, we did actually discuss that last Thursday at the County General Government Services meeting. And it seems, unfortunately, that letter was probably premised on a misunderstanding on the part of Amaranth Council. So Deputy Mayor Garrett's is actually on that committee with me, and I think the necessary clarification was achieved at that meeting. So he was going to take that information back to council. So I think the concerns they've expressed will no longer be concerns once they understand the full issue.
Okay, so that'll fade away. And number 5, the township regarding from Amaranth again regarding our resolution of service delivery review. They sent a letter to the fire board basically saying they're not paying the capital costs that we have. And I'm not sure that our agreement allows for that to happen. So that is something that will be coming up at the next fire board for discussion. Because we do budget for those capital costs, and we do currently have a replacement vehicle that we're going to be replacing this year, the rescue vehicle. And without all of our partners participating, it makes life a little difficult at this time. I'm sort of sad to see that Amaranth doesn't seem to seems to be always the one standing out.
Thanks for pulling that one out. I was going to pull it out if no one else did. I certainly agree with your assessment of that. I mean, at the end of the letter, Amaranth CAO clerk, it expresses the displeasure that Amaranth Council had in response to our motion seeking staff to look into options when it comes to joint board governance. And I guess in response, I would express reciprocal displeasure in their response, which to me certainly seems premature and altogether disproportionate. I also would question, the rationale by which, they're purporting to withhold capital funding. As you mentioned, that they're contractually obligated to provide pursuant to the agreements, which still very much remain in effect. And I just wonder if enough thought was given to the possible, consequences or repercussions of their purported actions to withhold that funding by way of a motion. Anyways, I mean, that's a decision for their council to make, and they'll have to live with the consequences of that if they, decide to sort of hold the line on that. But I fully suspect that that's an issue that will continue to kind of permeate through the committee level. So certainly at the fire board and CDRC. So time will tell. Anything else from the communications list? Deputy Mayor, I see your hand there.
No, nothing from the communications list, but I do want to make a comment after you maybe move past this section, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, this was just triggered by the comment by Councillor Bernardo when he talked about the ravaging effects of COVID-19 and the 13-year-old girl that passed on, unfortunately. And I just want to say to the members of our Indian community that may be watching this broadcast that my thoughts, and I'm certain all of our thoughts, are with you, and certainly for those who have family members back in India. I think we've seen over the last few days the unprecedented amount of infections and deaths. And sometimes when we see these numbers, we get desensitized because we're all dealing with our own issues, but those are connected to actual families, and maybe some of these families that live right here in our town. So I just want to again reiterate our thoughts and our prayers are with those members here in our community.
Thanks. I think that's a very good point. I know, at times I'm guilty of that too. You go through these daily numbers and it becomes too easy, as you say, to become desensitized to that. And every so often I try to remind myself that each one of those statistics, is a real human life. Somebody's parent, sibling, child, and even though we're a year into this thing, that fact hasn't changed. So I think we would all do well to try to keep that front of mind. Okay, there's nothing else from the communications list. Then can I get a motion to receive the items as listed? Councillor Bernardo, second by Councillor Wagner. All in favor? It's carried. All right, and a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw. Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Hall. All in favor? It's carried. And before we adjourn, just a reminder that we do have the special council meeting on Wednesday evening at 5 o'clock. And that agenda, I think, has gone out publicly now, Jennifer. Okay. All right. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Hall. All in favor? All right, carried. Thank you all. See you Wednesday.